Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm chatting with Scott Meyers from Plurilock Security. In this interview, we get into the recent quarter of which Plurilock put out some financials that look like the company may be on the turnaround path. We also get into those metrics that Scott would like to see the company demonstrate in order to possibly look towards a US listing in the near future. And we get into some of the recent names that the company has added onto the advisory board and the impact that they're having on the company. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Scott, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So we've been chatting with a few people involved with Plurilock over the last couple of months. Maybe we could start off. You could tell us a little bit about your role with the company, how long you've been a part of it, and why you're excited about it.
Yeah, so my name is Scott Meyers. I joined Plurilock last year as a CFO. Really excited. I had great conversations before I decided to jump on board. They have a wonderful board and a lot of high profile advisors, along with Ian and team are really top notch people. I think somewhat of I'll call it a hidden gem in the Canadian space here. So I was very excited to get on board and jump on and take over as a CFO.
So when we talk about Plurilock, and I think that there's a little bit of confusion still over what the company does because there's all these different components. We got critical services, we've got a
Right.
software component, we got a value-added reselling component. Maybe if you could break down those different buckets of what the company does for our audience, just to hear from a different perspective, I think sometimes helps people sort of make more sense of the business.
Yeah, I really look at us as like three streams of business. So one, as you mentioned, I think the most exciting to me right now is critical services because we're finding that we have clients that have really deep security needs, and they're large clients that you would probably think you know their names. We don't disclose them, but you know their names. And we found that there's really a lot that we can help them with, and it's not just going in and making sure that they're secure, but also it helps their operations and makes them more efficient. So it's, you're not just buying a deadbolt for your door, you're buying something that will actually help you make more money in the future as well. So that's why I like that service. It's a multifaceted approach to helping businesses. And then to support that, we have fulfillment. So Plurilock went public. We wanted to buy distribution and get access to customers. So that's why we bought fulfillment, which, some people just call VARs, but we're basically able to sell different products and services and software to our clients. And what I really like about those two streams alone is that we're intentionally choosing to be client focused and not distribution focused. So we're not going to push one product over another. We're going to look at the client and say, this is what you need, and this is what we're going to put in and help you install. And then the third stream is our technology. So Plurilock actually started as a small project on Vancouver Island, and this is around our identification technology, as well as we've developed technology to keep you safe on like a chat GPT or a large language model. And finally, we have cloud and Caspian defense on like for small and medium business as well.
So let's talk a little bit about that software because, like, to me, it sounds really kind of interesting. My understanding is it's advanced behavioral biometrics, which is effectively when I'm on a keyboard and I'm typing, if I just type my name, Steve, there's just certain amounts of time it takes me to type my name, like the amount of seconds it takes between each keystroke, and obviously, like the name Steve's only like what 4 or 5 letters. It's not maybe enough, but over a larger sample size, say maybe 3 or 4 sentences, it's gonna be able to pick that up and go, well, this doesn't seem like this is his typing patterns. There's the spacing between it's not. I don't think it's Steve. The way he moves his mouse, I don't think it's Steve, and it can effectively say this computer may have been hacked. Let's pause it or freeze it or maybe even take more action. Um, is this a technology that is kind of unique? For like from your perspective, are there other companies that are doing this?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely transparent, I think this falls into what we call zero trust. So it's really important that I know who you are at all times on your computer, because what used to happen was, oh, we just need strong passwords, we need strong, we need a login strong password, and that was good enough. Well, your computer now can get hacked into, and somebody could start using it. And this is, there's multiple cases of this happening. And we need a way to differentiate you being logged in properly from somebody else that stole your credentials and got logged in or somehow figured out a backdoor. Company has no idea. So it's another form of protection that I'm always authenticating that it's actually Steve at the keyboard. And actually our technology is pretty, I think it's 12 seconds we can tell, if you're typing email. Now, maybe if you're like a CEO or, one of us executives that don't do much on a computer, then it's going to take a little bit longer. I'm jesting a little bit there, but it will constantly authenticate you. So like it used to be, oh, I'm going to log in the morning. Maybe you go to lunch and then you come back and log in again after lunch. And so there's like 4-hour gaps that we don't know who it is. This technology allows, so, it like 12-second gaps. We don't know who it is. So it closes that window. There are other companies that do zero trust in different ways. This is, I think, a very unique way to do it. And it's actually applicable not just to your keyboard and mouse. We can train all sorts of things on it. So anytime there's a user interface. Yeah.
So like what would be an example of that?
So let's say, like here's an example that I love to bring up, and I'd love to get them as a customer. Let's say like you're piloting a drone for the U.S. government. We could probably, I'm sure our technology could learn like how this person flies versus somebody else, or even driving. Before we all get self-driving cars and whenever that's going to happen, is it the same driver that's in the car, or is it somebody else? So
Yeah.
you could kind of just think about any device where I have a human interface that involves like a lot of input. Like a keyboard and a mouse is just something that, I think is the most ubiquitous, or one of the more use cases that's just widely spread, and everybody uses keyboard and a mouse now. Well, there's other cases that we could get into as well with that. So I think that technology, that patent, really strong.
How accurate is it? Like I'm kind of thinking of, just you giving that example. I'm thinking of being in a. I'm sure we've all been in cars where we get in with a family member or a friend who's driving, and we're like, "Whoa, this person's really quick on the brake pedal, or they're hitting it, really hard." Or they're
Yeah.
they're accelerating towards a red light, which to me is like, when I see that, just anyways. Um, I like if we even just get back to like the keyboard
Mhm.
mouse example,
Yeah.
how like does it lock people out by accident regularly? How proven is the technology?
So it's not just taking one measure, because like, for example, I mean, you could even like slip on your keyboard or spill coffee or something, like, well, spill coffee, it'll probably lock you out because it's going to be a lot of input. But um, what happens is it'll notice one input and say like that seemed odd, and then it'll take 4 more measures. Now this
Okay.
happens over like I said, in 12 seconds, and sometimes even less, and sometimes a little bit more. But it'll take basically 4 measures. So if on the first measure it looks weird, it'll look for the second measure, and then it'll look for the third and the fourth. Each one is, I think, around 97% accurate. But when you start multiplying that out, the chances of getting a false positive, or you think like, okay, 3%, you're going to have a miss. But if you keep multiplying that out, um, it's we have not seen in the field any complaints of, oh, we have too many false positives. The things we see in the field are like, my kid jumped on the computer and it locked my computer, and they had to call you know
Okay.
had to call in, and their tech support, which is exactly what it's supposed to happen, right? That would be, the nefarious case of that would be, you're in a coffee shop and somebody swipes your laptop and tries to, take information off your computer. The non-nefarious case is, you're at home and your 3-year-old decides to jump on and just bang on the keyboard. um, Both cases, you still want to make sure that your computer is locked out, but again, one is more serious than the other.
Interesting. Now I think of like Norton, or McAfee, or is a McAfee. I think it's spelt McAfee, and everybody says McAfee, or maybe it's just spelled McAfee. I don't know.
I
Anyways,
Yeah, that's another day for us to solve that problem.
um, But I feel like if I saw that as an added service when I was signing up for Norton, and it was like, hey, for an extra $2 a month, or like an extra like $15 a year, you can have this added service built into your antivirus program. I think a lot of people would sign up for that. Is that a conversation you guys are having internally? Can you talk about that at all?
I would say certainly we're looking for a lot of different applications that we can do with our technology. I think where if I steer this into where I think the company is going, of course, first we're focused on uh, critical services are our number one focus right now because one, I think we're seeing the most growth there. We're seeing the most appetite from clients as well as that's the fastest way for us to get to be cash flow positive.
And
You
and
know,
and and, and just for our, and I'm sorry to
yeah,
cut you off, but just for
no,
our audience who hear critical services, my understanding is that that means that you guys are sort of custom tailoring solutions for clients, and thus it's a little bit higher margin, but it's sort of consulting work.
I would say it's two things. So, what differentiates us from, say, like just your Deloitte's and your larger consultants is that one, we do the consulting work and the strategy work to like that piece, but we don't just hand these clients a plan and like here's your plan, go execute. We actually do the execution for them as well. So we have the staff on hand that will go and actually run the plans that we say, hey,
Okay.
this is what you need to do, and this is how we're going to help you do it. And then the third thing that we can actually do for these clients too is while along the way, if we see they need any sort of fulfillment of like they need new routers or they need new firewalls, of course we could source that for them as well. So I think we come in with this complete package and ability, a set of skills where I see so that's the number one focus and that's what we're doing right now. And then where I see us moving after that is once we get that business and the cash flow positive and we get cash flow positive and stable, our software then could be used to bring into these clients as well. And I think that's really where the if I'm looking at kind of the first step is just we're building this working business model and where we've been, if you look at the financial results quarter over quarter, growing services, improving our margins, then the next step really is to take the technology that we have and start fusing that into our clients. Um, that's where I see probably where we're gonna. That's where I see where we're gonna drive this as a business, and where I see where probably the most potential is stored up because we're learning things along the way. Like doing this software helped us become security experts, and then this is going to come full back. Working for these clients are going to help us figure out what's actually the right product because a lot of this technology is cool. It's not necessarily anytime you have a cool technology, you always have to figure out what to do with it. It's kind of like AI right now. Nobody knows really what to do with it. Like I think people are kind of playing with it, and it's more of a I don't I don't want to be pejorative, but it's more of like a toy. Like, hey, it's kind of cool. I can talk to these large language models. As people are using it, they're going to figure out, oh, I could do this for my business, for example. And that's the same thing we're doing with our security software is where does this actually fit? We have a lot of ideas. And unfortunately, we've talked about this kind of before we started today. We're Canadian small cap and capital is limited. So we have to be very choosy about where we're investing. And we're investing in what's making sense right now, which is critical services. And then we're going to bring software in to get that to be one, a differentiator, and two, of course, a creation of value.
So Scott, that brings me to a question that I don't even know if you can talk about. If not, we can edit this out. But
That's fine.
I assume that you can give us some color on this. The Canadian junior markets are limited capital. You just said it, and the part of that I find really heartbreaking is that means that we have to address the elephant in the room, which is if you are a tech company and you need capital, you gotta kind of get out of Canada. Like there's just not enough money here. We've got a few hedge funds. Then a lot of people aren't really happy with how they operate. There's not many portfolio managers in Canada that are actually
Mm-hmm.
dabbling in these kind of names. There's some, but their tendency is that they want to see that you're trading at certain cash flow metrics before they really want to hop in. Based on how the stock's trading, I have a feeling that you guys have some of those in there, but we won't get into that. Um, but my question is that something that like I know you guys just engaged with the US, is it a US investment bank that you guys just engaged with? Is
Correct.
that a path that you see happening over the next say 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've probably talked to other people. Like we're looking at, how do we uplist in the U.S. There's definitely a path to get there, and part of the work that we're doing right now behind the scenes, at late nights with buckets of coffee, is what is our path and how do we execute to get to, say, like a U.S. uplisting of some sort. Um, and the reason why is, one, I think, look, I love Canada. I think we're in a great spot. I think we actually do a lot in this country that helps um, people get from like zero to something in terms of technology and business. And there's a good research arm there that I think goes undervalued. But once we get to the market, to your point, there is limited capital. I mean, if you just look Canada compared to the U.S. too, just population wise, Canada's a tenth of the U.S. population, so you're going to just have more capital available down south. That's just a reality. The second reality is, I think it's very easy for Canadians to invest in the U.S. market. It's actually harder for Americans to invest back into the Canadian market a lot of times. So you don't have the wide, broad access to capital that the U.S. market just has. And by the way, other countries can invest in the U.S. market. So there's some dynamics there that I think people don't necessarily appreciate. You just say like, "Oh, U.S. more money," and it's like, well, yeah, but it's because there's all these reasons that that kind of precipitate that. And I think Canada just naturally is more cautious and a little bit more bureaucratic, if I may say. It helped, we were talking kind of before about the real estate here. It helped not have a financial crisis because there's a limited number of banks. They're highly regulated. It's very buttoned up. Um, if you're trying to be a little more entrepreneurial, it's a lot more difficult. So the U.S. has a little bit more, I guess, appetite for cowboyism, if you will.
Now, you guys recently put out financials.
Mm-hmm.
For you as a CFO, what are the key metrics you're watching? And well, without, I'm not trying to ask you to give us any kind of guidance here.
Yeah.
But what are those numbers, those maybe ratios or metrics that you want to see improvement in order to get to that point where you think that the company can go and get that U.S. listing?
So I think a few things. One is I'm looking at our growth of critical services. So our professional services line in our financials, I'm absolutely laser focused on that every day. And also the percentage of gross margin that comes from that business. So if you pull out our gross margin, um, critical services and professional services makes way more money than our resale business, the distribution arm. All of them are viable parts of our business, but that piece is, we're looking at how do we grow that overall so that more of our gross margins coming from that as fast as possible. Those are the two things that I'm laser focused on, that, and so that we get to, again, like cash flow positive. And so I think as you see our financials, the story will be told in, are we growing professional services and are we growing it as a percentage of our gross margin?
Were you happy with the quarter from a financial standpoint? Progress?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We Q2 is like our slowest quarter
Okay.
because we sell to governments. Canada's Q1, U.S. federal government's Q3 is their main buying seasons, and then Q4 tends to be bigger too because our blue chip clients tend to have December 31st year ends, and how budgets work. If you don't spend it, you usually lose it, and it's the same in the government as well as large companies. So Q2 tends to be our slowest quarter, and yet we still have great performance on critical services as well as top line growth and margin improvement. And if you look at our adjusted EBITDA, it was healthy as well, and compared to previous year, I think over $1 million improvement. So we've done a lot. Like a lot of the hard work that we've been putting in over the last year is paying off. And it's, we talk about maybe these big broad steps, but the team is, I would want to say thank you to my teams, and at our company, because we're doing a lot of little things that are adding up to these results, and we're constantly improving the business as well as going out and getting more.
And well, Scott, I appreciate you doing this today. If
Yeah.
I'm an investor watching or potential investor, and I'm just watching the story, what am I looking out for over the remainder of the year?
I would say a few things. Definitely stay tuned to our press releases. So, like I said, I'm public, so I can't say too much out loud before it's announced. but stay tuned for what we're going to be announcing. I think we have some pretty cool things on the horizon. But even then, if I would say just look back and see what we've done and issued. Look at who's joined our advisory boards. So we have some I think, very qualified and credentialed people. I think you've even interviewed a few that have joined, and like I would just say,
Yep.
those are people you'd listen to regardless, because they just know so much in their field. But at the same time, they've joined us. Yeah, and
It's it's it's
yeah,
it's funny because we had Brian Cunningham on, who's
yeah,
ex CIA under Condoleezza Rice, under Reagan, ex KGB analyst, and he was basically spelling out for us how disinformation works on social media. And just yesterday, there was a group of YouTubers that just got nabbed with an
right.
indictment from the DOJ over doing, and it listed what the criteria was in the mandate for these payments that were given to this media company, and it was exactly what Brian had laid out for us when we interviewed him, which we were supposed to be chatting about Plurilock, but he's so interesting that I just started asking him other questions,
Yeah.
and it's literally like he laid that indictment out of how Russia works, and
Mhm.
it was just kind of a cool moment of just trying to. For me, it was an aha moment of how social media works with all these bots on the internet, and definitely a guy who knows his stuff.
Well, I think, it's in one way it looks like the world's getting more, confusing and complicated, but I think in another way we're actually seeing a little bit of the curtain get pulled back on a lot of these things. Because think about it, 10, 20 years ago, I would bet any money that, let's not pick on a government, but governments were doing this to each other 10, 20 years ago as well. And now we're actually at a point where we're starting to see some of this stuff come to light. Um, as a I guess as a citizen, I like the fact that we're able to look at this stuff and then also maybe terrified at the same time of, okay, well, if this is what's getting exposed, what else are they doing in the
Yeah,
background? Um, but yeah, and Brian's not just a good interview. He's also a really sharp person and really understands this space and what needs to happen in order for companies to be safe and protect themselves.
we also had Joe Sexton on, who
Yeah.
has just a great resume for companies like yours to get him involved at this stage. Really, I think is exciting because I think he said he was like involved in CrowdStrike when it was like a $30 million
Yeah.
revenue company or something. It was somewhere in that ballpark. And just like the list of companies that he's involved with, if you just look him up on LinkedIn, it's phenomenal. So it's a real, I think, a real stamp of approval for the company to have a guy like him, who's also like
Right.
a monster corporate development guy, come and help out.
Absolutely. And even, when I joined, I mean, I never thought I would be on a phone call with Admiral Mike McConnell. Like it's just one of those things that you don't think about in your career. And then all of a sudden, this is happening, and as well as, some of the other players that we've had around the table. Look, it's a very exciting space. It's why I got involved here. I think also, it's very necessary. And maybe just to close on something, we're also focused on, it's not just a company. We're also focused on keeping Western democracy safe. We take that very seriously. Like you said, there's a lot of bad actors coming on, and look what we just found yesterday with the what happened there. So
Tenant Media,
what
yeah.
else is going on? Yeah, tenant. So it's been exciting, and we're still got a lot of gas in the tank to keep pushing forward.
Well, Scott, thanks so much for hopping on here today. I appreciate you giving us some more insights into the company, and hopefully, as we see those quarters and the financials continue to improve, you'll keep coming back on here and updating our audience on what we should be looking out for in terms of those metrics, and we continue to see this company become one of the big tech stories out of Canada that I think the Canadian junior markets are starving for.
Well, I appreciate it, Steve. Happy to be here and happy to jump on anytime. Thank you.
All right, everybody, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.